Promises are issued like currency. Grand plans, clean timelines, glowing vows. You learn the exchange rate the hard way. Delivery never arrives, but the future keeps you paying in patience and in self-respect. The dream becomes a leash you hold against your own throat. You begin to mistake endurance for loyalty, and you start calling starvation faith. Tell me honestly, how many times have you carried a promise like a warm coin in your pocket, rubbing it smooth until it became a talisman that protected you from seeing what was in front of your eyes? How many times have you believed that the next version of the story would finally cash out the last 10 versions that didn't? How many calendar pages have you turned while someone spoke beautifully about tomorrow and performed nothing today? And how much of that theater did you quietly script for yourself, whispering that you would change on Monday, that you would begin after the birthday, that you would launch once it felt right? If you listen closely, you can hear the finance of it. A promise is a debt. A promise without collateral is a debt that pays interest in your attention. The longer you hold it, the more it owns you. The psychology is not magic. It is an old machine that turns hope into collateral. Your mind is a prediction engine. It wants clean forecasts. A promise gives a forecast with edges. The body calms at edges. Even false edges feel better than honest fog. That is why a vow with a neat date makes your chest loosen, even if the speaker has never once delivered. Francis Bacon saw this appetite with a sentence that should be stamped on every calendar. Hope is a good breakfast, but it is a bad supper. In the morning, hope gets you moving. At night, if it is all you ate, it leaves you weak. Future faking knows this biology. It feeds you a banquet of breakfasts. It skips the supper every time. What does future faking sound like when you strip the music away? It sounds like specificity without stake. We will. I'll. By Q2, after the holidays. Dates arrive detached from deposits. Milestones are promised in paragraphs rather than paid for in work. Small delivery today is traded for big delivery later. The later keeps moving. You watch your own standards move with it. A man who once demanded proof now accepts performance. A man who once measured only deeds now celebrates rehearsals. The rehearsal becomes the product. You clap and go home hungry. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote like a man who sat too close to the gears of power to be sentimental about them. He knew the theater as well as the blade. In The Prince, he writes, "Men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that he who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." Sit with the cruelty of that for a moment. Present necessity. You need relief now. You need a story that reduces the noise. You need a sentence that explains why you should keep waiting. The deceiver sells you what your nervous system wants most in the moment. He does not need to be brilliant. He only needs to know the price at which you will sell your discernment. If you want the world to be kind, he will sell you a kind world tomorrow in exchange for obedience today. If you want your own potential to be true, he will sell you a version of yourself in exchange for a year. The purchase feels clean because the currency is invisible. You pay in minutes. You pay in pride. You pay in the slow erosion of your willingness to believe your own eyes. Notice how the accounting works when it is you doing the future faking to yourself. The sentence is simple. I will become different soon. Soon gets to be beautiful because it is unfalsifiable right now. Soon lets you be two men at once. The man who announces transformation and the man who does not have to transform. Soon is the theater that lets you applaud yourself without changing your day. Bacon would call this the mind's love of order, where there is none. Promises create regularity in thought, where no regularity exists in behavior. You feel better, and you do not get better. The debt grows. Hope collateral is what keeps the loan going when payments are missed. You stake something dear to you against the promise. You stake friendships. You stake your reputation. You stake your sense that you are a serious man. The more you stake, the harder it becomes to admit that the note will not be paid. You double down because the alternative is humiliation. You add time to a bad position. You say publicly that the launch is near. You tell your people to hold on. You hold yourself hostage to your own words, and then you hate anyone who threatens to expose the math. Listen carefully. The exposure you fear is not to others. It is to yourself. The mirror never needed an audience to work. The technique is older than you, and it is not always cynical. Sometimes future faking is weakness dressed as charm. The mouth promises because the mouth wants to be loved. The calendar never had a vote. Machiavelli again, colder this time. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Whether or not he wrote the line exactly that way, the point is the same. Weak men promise easily. They intend to be different later. Later has its own demands. Later devours words to feed its hunger. The man who promised becomes the man who must survive. He cashes your patience to purchase his comfort. He uses your loyalty to fund his delays. Now ask the question that scares you. Why do you believe him? Why do you believe yourself? Because belief is cheaper than altering your day. Because belief feels like virtue, while action feels like the risk of being seen. Because failure in the future feels noble, while failure today feels like evidence. You can live for years, protected by beautiful forecasts. You can die surrounded by uncashed bonds. There is also the intermittent reinforcement every trainer of animals knows and every manipulator uses. Deliver nothing for 3 weeks. Deliver something small with flair. The relief hits your bloodstream. You remember the hit longer than you remember the famine. The body learns that starvation ends if you stay. Faith becomes a biochemical loop. You call it loyalty. But loyalty without verification becomes leverage in another man's hand. He can summon your patience at will. He can purchase your time for the low cost of vague excitement. Watch the micro moves, words that sound like deposits but are only drafts. I sent the email. I'm on it. It's in motion. No receipts, no dates, no numbers. Only motion words that let your brain imagine progress. The imagination pays you in pictures. Pictures do not ship. Bacon's knife returns. Bad supper. You keep trying to sleep on slogans. You wake up thin. Turn the camera inward again. How many times have you posted the plan instead of building the thing because the applause for the plan is so immediate, so generous, so warm? How many times have you told a friend about your new regimen so that your mouth could experience the pride your spine had not yet earned? How many times have you promised yourself an identity and then defended the promise like a relic when all you had in your hands was a schedule you did not follow? Future faking is not only something done to you, it is something the untrained mind does to itself to avoid the shame of starting small. Grand plans protect you from the humiliation of a first set with light weight. Grand plans protect you from the embarrassment of asking for help. Grand plans protect you from the sobering arithmetic of putting dates on paper and then living inside them. There is a clean test that humiliates future faking on sight. Convert promises into milestones, dates, and deposits. Do you notice the physiology that sentence produces? A little nausea, a little heat, a little anger at the man who would dare to remove your romance. Good. Milestones force a sequence. Dates force a clock. Deposits force a stake. The beautiful fog loses its color under fluorescent light. Precision exposes the gift wrapping. You will either find a thing underneath, or you will find nothing. If you find nothing, you are not betrayed by fate. You are protected by clarity. But people change. Yes, they do. And change is noisy, early and quiet later. True change is shy. It prefers calendars to captions. True change does not issue bonds. It pays in cash on Tuesdays. If you need a sentence to carry in your pocket, steal another from Bacon and hammer it into your week. Knowledge is power. Knowledge here is not a library. It is a ledger. Who delivered? What arrived? When? How often? At what cost? Knowledge strips the theater from the transaction. Power returns to the man who can count. Imagine a conversation where you finally refuse to eat breakfast for dinner. You ask for dates. You ask for small proof. You ask for a deposit that would hurt a little if the other man failed. You do not need to scream. You do not need to accuse. You need only to make the terms specific. Watch what happens. The air changes. The performer becomes less eloquent. The timeline begins to leak. Excuses about bad luck multiply. You learn in 10 minutes what you were refusing to learn for 10 months. The refusal was not about kindness. It was about fear. You were afraid to see the emptiness behind the music, because then you would have to stop dancing. Future faking has a cousin that lives inside you and wears your face. It is the voice that says, "I love myself enough to be patient with my growth." The sentence is not wrong. It is dangerous when it is used to hide the other truth. It is not about how much you love yourself. It is about whether you hate the current version of yourself enough to work. Hate here is not melodrama. It is sacred refusal. It is the decision that today's arrangement is an insult to what you could carry if you stopped protecting your comfort with arrangements about tomorrow. A man who truly loves himself learns to hate his own postponements. That hatred is not against his worth. It is against his excuses. Ask the question you keep ducking. What did the last 5 promises purchase? If the answer is more promises, you are paying interest on interest. If the answer is that you became a man who defends a debtor because admitting the debt is bad would make you the fool who believed, then you have made yourself the collateral. You walk around tied to a loan you did not have to take. You call the rope loyalty. It is a leash. Machiavelli would not have pitied you for it. He might have respected the elegance. A man who can keep you with future gifts spends no money today. He gets work at a discount. He gets obedience at a bargain. In The Prince, he counsels rulers to appear virtuous while doing necessary harm. A prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. The fox part is relevant here. Traps often look like invitations to a better life. The bait is always tomorrow. The steal is always the present. Recognize the trap. Feel your own hunger, making the bait shine. Let your hunger insult you into clarity. How do I know if I am the faker? The answer is unsentimental. When did you last convert a vow into an act that someone else could verify without your narration? When did you last put a date on a thing and then hand the other man permission to call you to account on that date? When did you last put a deposit on the table that would cost you something if you stepped away? When did you last write down the milestones and then allow another man to look at the page without explanation? If your answer requires a story, you already know. You may protest that harshness is unkind, that life is complicated, that pressure reduces love to contracts. Number pressure takes love out of theater and puts it into time. If you believe a man is worthy, you owe him clarity. If you believe a project has dignity, you owe it measurement. If you believe your life is not a toy, you owe it the ugly spreadsheets that make grown men humble and make liars run. There is grief in this. Grief that you lost years to coupons that never redeemed. Grief that you taught your people to clap for promises. Grief that you trained yourself to metabolize hunger as virtue. You will want to find a villain. Sometimes there is one. Often there is not. There is only your appetite for breakfast at midnight and the salesman who learned to cook. Do not waste more time arguing about good men and bad men. You are not a judge. You are a builder. Builders count. Builders measure. Builders come back to the site at dawn with a list. Builders do not care if the promise sounded like a poem, if the roof is not on. A strange thing happens when you start living that way. Forecasts do not get worse. They get rarer. You stop needing them. You begin to prefer small deliverables over grand intentions because small deliverables pay you in self-respect. You become allergic to any sentence that starts with someday. You begin to feel dishonest when you hear your own mouth sketching a heroic tomorrow. You cut the sentence in half and replace it with a date. You become difficult to sell. You become impossible to keep on a leash. If you find yourself waiting for a rescuer, I will save you a decade with one ugly truth. No one is coming to help you. Men may join you. Men may walk with you. Men may carry a door while you carry the frame. But no one is coming into your house to do the work that you are still describing in beautiful futures. Read that again. It is not about how much you love yourself in the lotion and mirror sense of that phrase. It is about whether you hate the current version of yourself enough to work. Do you hate your own postponement enough to make a list? Do you hate your own softness enough to eat the boredom you have been avoiding? Do you hate your own slogans enough to assign yourself a milestone and then keep it without applause? That hatred is not violence. It is precision. It is a refusal to treat your one life as a rehearsal. You may ask whether this posture makes you cynical. It does not. Cynicism is a pose that refuses to be surprised by goodness. Clarity allows surprise and then confirms it. Clarity does not slander promises. It prices them. Clarity does not sneer at hope. It serves hope breakfast and refuses to let it cook dinner. Bacon again, because he earned the last word on this topic 4 centuries ago, and the sentence has not aged. Hope is a good breakfast, but it is a bad supper. Let your mornings be full of it. Let your afternoons be ruled by the dull things that turn hope into weight. Let your evenings be measured by what sits on the table. And when a man attempts to feed you dessert for the 4th night in a row, do not call it faith when you push the plate away. Call it adulthood. There will be hours when you miss the theater. It is loud and flattering and forgiving. It will whisper that you have become hard, that you do not believe in magic anymore, that you are closing your heart. That is the theater, trying to sell you a season pass. You can still believe in magic. You will simply require it to perform on schedule. You can still open your heart. You will simply refuse to rent it to speculators. You can still be gentle. You will simply stop letting your gentleness be the currency with which other men buy time they do not intend to use. Your future contains miracles. You do not need anyone to issue them as bonds. You need to become the kind of man whose present is heavy enough that tomorrow does not have to shout. That man is not seduced by grand plans because he has learned that they are often camouflage for the fear he refuses to carry. That man does not cling to a leash and call it devotion. He does not name starvation faith. He knows exactly what his next 3 dates demand. He knows exactly which deposit will hurt enough to keep him honest. He knows exactly when to stop listening and walk. He is not waiting. He is working. He is not impressed. He is exact. If you need a simple way to begin, make everything small enough to embarrass you. Write 1 date, place 1 deposit, deliver 1 thing in full without telling anyone you are going to do it. See what that does to your mouth. See how it makes you more careful with promises. See how it cleans your room of men who depended on your willingness to be a museum for their futures. Then look in the mirror and tell the man there what you will do tomorrow. Not what you will become, what you will do. If he smiles as if he is already full, you have fed him supper before he earned it. If he nods and writes it down, you are at last in business. Do not let anyone tell you that this is cynical or cruel. It is a respect for time. It is a respect for language. It is a respect for the part of you that carried too many futures and ate too few dinners. Machiavelli taught you how deception sells. Bacon taught you how hope spoils when it is the only dish. You do not have to become hard to learn from both men. You have to become honest. Honest enough to price a promise. Honest enough to build without witnesses. Honest enough to despise your own delays. Honest enough to stop pretending that breakfast will keep you alive forever.